Yeah. Yeah. Need someone that I can just write something for and they can start it.
Okay, good afternoon. I've got about 9 minutes after 1. We're running a little bit behind today, but we're going to go ahead and call county and municipal government to order. Clerk, if you would call the roll.
Senator Albritton. Here. Senator Carnley. Here. Senator Coleman. Here. Senator Gudger. Senator Hatcher. Senator Hovey. Senator Kelly.
Here.
Senator Coleman Madison. Senator Chambliss.
Here.
Senator Elliott.
I am here, and we have a quorum. Thank you very much. First bill on the calendar is SB 63 by Senator Carnley.
All right, thank you. Chairman, this is a bill that was brought, and what it seeks to do is to segregate the county general fund and discretionary funds. So what it would say is that the county commission would not be held liable and the general fund liable if there was a local law that established a discretionary fund and that elected official was in charge and the county had no authority to delegate how that money was to be spent. The local law establishes that, but if they spend it, contrary to how that law says, then now the county commission and the general fund is liable for that. So what this would do is say that they would not be. And
I have a motion for favorable by, we'll say, Senator Chambliss, and Carnley's going to second his own bill, and then we have discussion.
Thank you so much. I just, when you made the mention that there's a discretionary fund and then the rest of the commission would not have any control over how that money was being spent. Mm-hmm. So, but wouldn't it be that even the rest of the county commission would vote on designating those discretionary funds? I just want to clarify, because the lawyer in me does not want to absolve anybody of issues that shouldn't be.
Understand, and the non-lawyer in me will do my best to explain it. But these discretionary funds were established for, like, say, the pistol permits. That's probably a bad example, but that money is set aside. It has rules that are specific to the sheriff, and he can use that money how he pleases. If he does something contrary to the way that the funds are supposed to be spent, the county commission can't direct that. That money just flows through the general fund, goes into that discretionary fund, and it's that person's to spend.
Yeah.
If they do something wrong, the county commission can't say, when they get audited, they're just responsible even though they have no oversight over it.
Thank you for that further clarification.
Thank you.
Any further?
I have a question.
Senator Coleman Madison.
Thank you, sir. I just want to be perfectly clear of what we're voting on here, because in looking at it, I'm like, okay, you don't have any problem, because it seems like somebody else had the responsibility to spend the money, but the county commission ends up getting blamed for it or being sued. Is that the?
That is correct. They're brought right now. They're brought into the suit.
Okay. So there are provisions in the law, and again, for the lawyers that are sitting around this table, because we had a situation involving sheriff for spending of monies for inmates chose to do whatever they wanted to do, of course. And I think that case was prosecuted. I just want to make sure that there are caveats there in the law that if you commit the crime, you do the time.
They're still responsible. They would be held in, they would have the responsibility of that. What this does is it protects the county commission's general fund from being,
Held
financially
liable and sued
responsible.
for something that they don't have any
Right.
control over.
But the discretionary funds and the elected official are still responsible and can be held accountable to the
Okay.
law.
I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Okay, further questions for the sponsor? If not, we have a motion and a second. Clerk, if you'll call the roll.
Senator Albritton? Senator Carnley? Senator Coleman? Senator Gudger? Senator Hatcher? Senator Hovey? Senator Kelly?
Aye.
Senator Coleman Madison? Senator Chambliss?
Aye.
Senator Elliott?
Aye. Bill receives favorable report. Thank you, Senator Carnley. Okay, next up, we have SB 81 by Senator Singleton. Mr. Leader, welcome.
Thank you. And this is a public hearing has been called on this bill, right?
That's correct, sir. We want to just get you an opportunity to tell everybody why this is a great bill, and then they'll come shoot holes in it.
All right.
And then we'll vote on it.
Thank you. I'm looking for the shots to come. Mr. Chairman, thank you for allowing me to come before you today. This basic bill passed out of our body on last year, got to the House and got caught up in whatever, it got caught up in the House where we don't have no control. But under the current law, a member of the Board of Registrar must meet certain qualifications. Also under the current law, the governor, the auditor, commissioner of agriculture and industries appoint the registers of voters. Appoint the Board of Registrars. This bill is a code amendment that will require that the governor, commissioner of agriculture industries, or most of them acting as a part of the board appointment, work to ensure that membership of each board of registrars is reflective of the racial demographics of the state. This bill also requires that each registrar receive a salary increase from $80 to $100 per day. This bill ensures that members of the board are not considered county or state employees. This bill requires that the board of registrars do the following. 1, be open the same hours as the courthouse of the county, or alternatively, establish regular hours and make those hours available to the public. And number 2, have a registrar present during those hours. This bill has a fiscal note on about $800,000 to the general fund. I see general fund chairman sitting there. That's a small amount. And that's basically what the bill does.
Are there questions for the sponsor, Senator Albritton? You're recognized.
Thank you. I appreciate your discussion of the amount. Does this supersede or add to when local counties come forward with their registrar payment increases? Or do you know?
There's no intent to supersede it. I think this, because they pay, some of those counties pay some of that. What they do is add, they give them the office, or they give them, some of them do it in, give them the office place and space in the courthouse and other things that they will give them outside of monetary. And I think it go from each 67 counties kind of do something a little bit different.
They do, and that's my point. They have
Right.
different hours that come in and
Yes.
such, and they pay, and each, they have limitations on such. But my question is, does this supersede that, or will we continue to see those?
What we're trying to do here is to get them to at least establish some hours to where they're going to be.
Okay.
Okay, so if you're going to be there, we want them to, number one, to be there if the courthouse is open. If they're not going to be there, want to do it at the time the courthouse open, but at least establish some hours of which they are going to be there and make it public to the public. That's what we're asking them to do.
Fine.
And that doesn't mean all 3 of them have to be there. It can be just one, as long as the public have
as the
access
office is
to be
open.
able to come to the office, yes.
Right, I understand. Thank you, appreciate it. I'll use it the best way I can at the other times.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any further questions for the sponsor?
Just one quick question,
Yes, ma'am.
sir. Senator Singleton said, when you said make hours available to the public, does that mean you're going to post, they're going to have these
Yes.
hours posted?
Posted, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Ready to open up the public hearing?
Senator Carnley.
Question. So I know all of these counties have different hours, and that's been something I know in our county that we've been trying to get our hands around because state board, but there's 67 different ways of doing it. Is this attempting to try to?
This bill doesn't really say you got to have unified hours across the state. What it does say is that if the courthouse is open, we at least want you to follow those hours if the case, okay? If you're gonna do something alternative, whatever that alternative is, then it must be, give the public notice of when those hours are gonna be. We're not trying to make a uniform hour and say everybody gotta be open from 8 to 5 across the state,
But they would have to be open if the courthouse is open.
unless they do the alternative.
Okay. And the reason I say that is because I know ours are limited to certain hours, and then after that, they basically are working for free. And very few of them are going to jump in there and do that because they get paid by the day, not by the hour. And so I
Correct.
just
And so
trying to
that's
see-
why we gave them an alternative to be able to post the hours that they see fit.
Thank you, Mr. Leader.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to open the public hearing, and I would like to ask Ms. Lauren Hodge to come up and talk to us. She signed up, the kinder, gentler Sonny. Hey, Lauren.
Hello. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm here in support of this legislation. This is one of ACCA's legislative priorities this session. We're thankful for Mr. Leader carrying this for us yet again last year. He referenced, but I would like to remind you all that this legislation was brought before you last year on the Senate floor in the form of a pay increase for the Board of Registrars. At that time, Senator Barfoot accepted a friendly amendment that includes the 3 provisions outlined in this bill that Mr. Leader has already reviewed with all of you. So we're just picking up where we left off last year, and hopefully with your approval today, we will get it across the finish line. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Lauren. We appreciate it. Next up, we have Lee Reed with the Alabama Association of the Board of Registrars. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Chairman Elliott and honorable senators of the County and Municipal Government Committee. My name is Lee Reed, and I'm the Vice President of the Alabama Association of Boards of Registrars Association, also known as the AABOR. Our newly elected president, Sydney Dean, could not be with us today. She's got symptoms of COVID and didn't want to join us, so please, I'm kind of reading her report here, so bear with me. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today about the AABOR's opposition to SB 81. With the exception of Jefferson County, registrars in every county in the state of Alabama, there's at least 3 of us. We are the largest and only official association representing the registrars in the state. We learned about this bill through the monitoring of Allison, the Alabama Legislator website. There have been no communications with the association by the sponsors of this bill, a bill that would have such significant negative impact on registrars and the voters of Alabama. As a body, the AABOR does not support SB 81 and requests that you also not support SB 81 in any form, as it would apply a racial quota to the appointment of registrars that is an unlawful infringement upon the appointment powers of the executive branch and could result with the stroke of a pen in the loss of approximately 30% of veteran skilled registrars across the state for no other reason than they are of the wrong race. Such a loss would imperil the integrity of the Alabama election system. Briefly, I would like to tell you about just some of the duties of the registrars. Out of the 3 registrars in each county, 1 is appointed by the governor, 1 by the state auditor, and 1 by the agricultural commissioner for 4-year terms. Many registrars serve multiple terms as the appointee authority recognizes the importance of having skilled, experienced registrars in the office. Though we are called a board, we are not a board in the sense that you may be familiar with, like the United Way. that only meets a few times each month. Registrars work the hours they are allowed to work under the law, and many registrars across the state work full-time. Some 40 hours per week, others work part-time. But all of us are committed to ensuring fair and accurate elections. Due in large part to their diligent work, Alabama has an election system that is imitated by other states across the nations. Registrars' responsibilities in recent years have increased dramatically, along with Alabama's explosive population growth. We are solely responsible for the management of over 3 million voter files. We've processed 32% average increase in voter registration in the last decade. We monitor felon voting qualifications. Over 43,000 were incarcerated in 2020 alone, and evaluate requirements for and issuance of thousands of voter photo identification cards needed to vote at the polls. Requirement for voter ID that includes citizenship, among other vital duties that protect the sanctity of our electoral process. That is a short summary of what registrars do and their importance to our election system. I would like to address briefly AABOR opposition to SB 81. Firstly, the endangerment of Alabama electoral system and the unlawful infringement of executive branch appointment powers. SB 81, lines 54 through 58, state that Board of Registrars in each county shall be reflective of the racial demographics of the state. The word shall is not permissive, but would be a requirement under the law, the breach of which would be enforced by the courts. That language is in this bill for a reason. The intention is that it would be eventually enforced. A long-term practical effect to the passage of SB 81 is that other executive branches of government across the state, to include mayors of Alabama cities, will eventually be required to appoint based on racial quota. If it was good enough to use against the registrars, why not do so in other areas of employment? Under SB 81, 1/3 of veteran registrars who have helped to create an electoral system that is an example of excellence for the rest of the nation would lose their positions because of race. Secondly, incorrect classification of VOR employment. Lines 137 through 140 incorrectly state that registrars are not state or county employees. In fact, under current law, the county is responsible for some areas of registrar employment and the state other areas of employment. The State Comptroller of Alabama recently stated the BOR is more akin to county employees than state employees. Passage of this bill would place at risk health insurance benefits received by registrars in some counties, leaving them without a way to take care of medical needs for their families. Lastly, unnecessary duplication of existing BOR duties and possible BOR attendance requirement. Lines 141 through 145 state requirements reference working days and hours that already exist within the BOR manual issued by the Secretary of State. Line 146 statement that a registrar must be always present during the same hours as the courthouse is open, which is impossible and impractical. It may not be possible or advisable for all registrars to be always present due to illness, emergency, pandemic, required training by the Secretary of State, etc. Also, by law, registrars have a limited number of working days per year in most counties, as you stated earlier, so it would be difficult for many registrar offices to remain open during courthouse hours, as the courthouse may have more open days per year than working days allotted for the requisite counties.
Ms. Reed, I'm going to need you to wrap it up if I can.
I'm sorry. That was it. We do plan to put in our own pay raise bill after consultation with the Secretary of State and other lawmakers. So please listen to the voices of the registrars represented by the AABOR and vote no to SB 81, the passage of which will profoundly negatively impact every corner of the great state.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Senator Hatcher.
Thank you.
Ms. Reed.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thought I got out free.
No, ma'am. Let me ask you, now, you represent the registrar?
Yes, sir. I'm the vice president of the Alabama Association of the Board of Registrars.
I'm looking at this bill, and I'm trying to determine, because you just used some interesting language about racial quotas. Where is that in the bill?
Lines 54 through 48 state that the Board of Registrars in each county shall be reflective of the racial demographics of the state.
So Montgomery County is about 62% black, and I think the vast majority, if not all, of our registrars on that board are white.
Correct.
You have a problem with that? If that's changed based on this bill?
No, sir. What I have a problem with is requiring the appointing officials to appoint due to racial demographics rather than qualifications.
So if we remove the term quota, because the idea is for us to have a fair representation of individuals on as best we can in every situation, and there's a reason for that, right? Because what we know is that there's no, people often try to get to interesting solutions without ever dealing with the reason as to why it is we have the problem. So would that be considered, you just talked about the experiences and the qualifications and the job description really of registrars.
Correct.
And so I'll ask again, do you see it as an issue potentially that in using the example of Montgomery County, that we have a board of registrars in a county that's 62.3% black and brown, and all of the registrars are white?
I am simply asking that the appointing officials.
It's kind of a yes or no. Do you have an issue with that?
I have an issue with the wording of that the appointing officials.
So I have an issue with the racial quota term you just used, because I think what we're trying to do is achieve some degree of parity when it comes to this. And I think you know that when you use such a term, how inflammatory that can be. And so if the bill is attempting, because on the face of it, the bill, I think, is attempting to do the job of raising the amount of money we're paying registrars, the Board of Registrars, members of that board, right? And you're for that.
I would love a raise, yes, sir.
No more questions.
Senator Hatcher, I just wanted, for the good of this conversation, I want to clear something up, and I want to go back to the bill that is in your packet, and it starts on page 2, line 54. And I want to make sure, Ms. Reed, because I watched or listened to you quote the bill, and I think there may be a little confusion. But it goes to the appointing authorities. It says the governor, auditor, and commissioner of agriculture and industries, or a majority of them acting as a state board of appointment, shall work to assure that the membership of each board of registrars is reflective of racial demographics of the state. So it says shall work to assure is how that language is. Now that's a little different than what you put out there, but that is what the text of the bill is. And I just want to make sure that there's some fidelity in the conversation that we're having here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to make that clarification also.
Okay, Senator Coleman.
Thank you. It's just a comment, and it's based on something that the gentlelady said at the microphone when she said that these Board of Registrars will be chosen not for qualifications, but based on race. And that, I take offense to that, because you're making the assumption, even if this bill did do what you described, that you would not have black and brown people that are qualified. And so I want to make sure that I put that out there in the universe. You have to be really careful about the language that you use.
Certainly.
And what you specifically said is that people would be chosen based on race and not qualification, which I take offense to and want to put that on record. Be careful about how you phrase things, especially when you come to this diverse body.
Certainly. And
Ms. Reed, you don't need to respond. I'm gonna help you. Next, anybody else have any comments?
Yeah.
Okay, Senator Coleman Madison.
Thank you, sir. And I just want to echo the sentiments of what's already been said. You know, I think this is a good bill. I think the bill attempts to really try to raise the standard of living for registrars. They are hard workers all over the state, whether they be in urban or rural areas. I know that they are hard workers. I can't imagine anybody speaking against this bill, certainly someone in your position, but everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But this gives a raise to board of registrars who are out there working hard every day. It allows for counties or that particular county to have the discretion to work within their frame to allow them to not mandate hours, but says that if you're outside of the regular working hours of whatever the courthouse is, because people want to register or they may have other questions, people move all the time. Again, you have to have your address changed and things like this. And so, and now with the waiver where we're trying to make some changes to voting rights and things like this, so people access to voting, I always looked at the Board of Registrars as being a neutral, although they may not be neutral, but they should be neutral in what they do in trying to assist people. And so for various reasons, not just registering to vote, but moving in other things, people may, or name change, people will have to come down and change that. Again, I would like to know that if you're not open every day, based on the discretion of that county and how they operate, which this bill allows, that at least hours are posted. I remember trying to go to a shoe repair shop, a guy in Bessemer. Went to him 3 days and but the bottom line is that I'm like, good grief, post your hour. I left my card with a note. Post your hours. So at least I won't be wasting my time coming down here. So, and the other question that I have is that it says that they should always be present. That's not what this bill says. It doesn't say they should always be present. Again, it says that they are to establish hours, whatever their hours are, and just make them known to the public and post it. It was one other thing I wanted to ask you about. When you said they are not, how do you consider yourself? Are you state or county paid, employee?
Well, that's a very gray area. At present, we are mostly, the state has told us that we are county employees. The state pays our compensation to the county. We receive our paychecks through the county. The county provides, they're required to provide an office.
Okay, so basically you're a county employee, so why would you assume that your benefits would change based on this bill? This bill doesn't say anything about.
This bill states that we're not county or state employees.
Are not county or state employees. Well, you said it's a gray area, so maybe that's an area that we need to clear up. And I don't know an exempt as provided in this section. Maybe the sponsor of the bill may have a clarification of that. But again, I think it's a good bill. I don't think we need to be throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because certainly this raises the standard of living for registrars all over the state, and I'm just kind of surprised that one of their own is speaking against it. Thank you.
May I address one of your comments there about...
Briefly, please.
Sure. Where it states that we have to, be there the hours of the courthouse or establish our hours. We have state meetings that all registrars are supposed to attend, trainings. So the office has to be closed on those. There's no provisions or exceptions for that. We all got COVID. My office all got COVID, and we were closed at one point.
But that would impact any office, even any county office, and all you have to do is just close due to, as most people do. So again, I think you're looking at worst case scenario. That's why we said post it. So even that, even with COVID or even with whatever it is, if it's one person in the office, just say, we're out due to or closed due to whatever, but just post it and let people know. That's all the bill requires.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. That concludes the public hearing, and thank you, Senator Coleman Madison. At this point, the chair moves we give the bill a favorable report. Do I have a second? I have a lot of seconds. We're going to go with Senator Coleman. If we can call the roll, please, clerk.
Senator Albritton. Aye. Senator Carnley. I'm sorry. Thank you. Senator Coleman.
Aye.
Senator Gudger. Senator Hatcher. Senator Hovey. Senator Kelly. Senator Coleman Madison. Senator Chambliss. Senator Elliott.
Aye. Very good. The bill receives a favorable report. Congratulations, Mr. Leader and members. Okay. Next up on the bill, on the calendar, we have Senate Bill 77. That's my bill. that deals with the Alabama Department of Archives and History. There is a small amendment to the bill, and if I can, this is how I'd like to handle this, is get the amendment on the bill, and then we'll open the public hearing, and then we'll come back to the bill. But I want to make sure we're discussing the thing that is in front of us. So the amendment, if I can explain it very quickly, changes the number of appointed members for each elected official from 2 to 3, which means that each of those elected officials will have 3 appointments instead of 2. I'll move adoption of the minute and I have a second from Senator Kelly on the amendment. Clerk, if you can call the roll, please.
Wait a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
Which page is this on you're changing here, man?
Senator Albritton,
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on just a second, Clerk. Okay. The amendment changes the, I don't know what that is.
that's a sub that, I had told you that I had that I wanted to introduce. And
Okay. So we're voting on the amendment. The amendment is in your book. The amendment is in your book. It changes the number of appointees to the board by the elected officials from 2 each to 3 each.
Large, from 2 members to 3 at large.
Each elected official in the bill will have 3 appointees instead of 2, as is currently written. It changes the number of appointees. I have a motion and a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Albritton,
This will have,
Senator Carnley, Senator Coleman, Senator Gedger, Senator Hatcher, Senator Hovey, Senator Kelly, Senator Coleman Madison, Senator Chambliss, Senator Elliott.
Aye. Okay, the amendment is adopted, and we are on the bill. I'm going to give a break. Senator Coleman Madison, I'm going to describe my bill.
okay,
And then we're going to open the public hearing and talk about it.
okay.
And then we will deal with your sub. I'm just fine, man. But we have a limited amount of time, and I am trying to get through this. So I'm going to run this meeting, and we're going to move through it. Okay. The bill deals with the Alabama Department of Archives and History. Currently, that board is self-perpetuating, which means that it essentially recommends itself and its own members for appointment or reappointment to the board. This legislation changes that and requires that the board members be appointed by elected officials in the state of Alabama, to include the governor, the speaker, the pro tem, and the lieutenant governor. The amendment we just adopted changed that number from 2 appointees each to 3. The legislation also requires that the governor serve on the board as well. So that gives you an odd number, which is always a good thing on the deliberative body on the board. The members that are currently on the board are eligible for reappointment by an elected official if they would like to be. That is the sum total of the bill, and at this point, we'll open the public hearing. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, how many people do we have?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 have signed up to the public hearing. There is not any way that we will get through all of those. So to the extent we go back in at 2, and I'd like to actually give people, we don't have a time machine, so we actually got to get down there. So to the extent that y'all are saying the same thing, it may be a good idea to see who wants to speak longer. But I'd like to give the committee some opportunity to talk. So we can keep this to a minute and a half apiece. We may be able to get through it. But
May I request something, Mr. Chairman? If you'll give me a time, I have to go right now, but I'll be back for the vote. If you'll tell me a time, I'll be here. 1:55.
we're going to vote on this bill at 1:50. We're going to vote on this bill. Okay, Mr. Burton, Gary Burton, you're first. And Mr. Burton, again, I apologize for having to be brief, but if you use everybody else's time, you're going to have to take it up with them behind you.
I think I can accommodate your time constraint.
Thank you, Mr. Burton. You're recognized.
My name is Gary Burton. I have served for more than 50 years as pastor of the Pensacola Baptist Church. I'm also a past president of the Alabama Historical Association. I'm a longtime member of the Friends of Alabama Archives. I wish to oppose Senate Bill 77 because of the instability it would undoubtedly bring to a trusted public institution. Over the past several decades, private donor support for the archives has totaled some $15 million. How is that possible? Well, I think it's possible because such an impressive level of private funding is no accident. This stemmed from the stability that is girded under public trust. It's the trust factor that's important. That faith takes the form of monetary support sometimes, but for the archives, it also takes the form of the donation of treasured historical materials, not just money. It takes trust for individuals to donate their precious family items to a museum or a cultural institution. The archives record of this regard goes back many generations. That trust is built and stable. The governing board has allowed archives to collect quilts from G's Bend, uniforms and letters from Alabamians serving overseas, things like the song lyrics from Hank Williams and many, many other things. The governing board for such an institution should not be subject to change with every election cycle or at the whim of state leadership. We're just pleading for the existing stability to continue.
Thank you, Mr. Burton. Ms. Boyd, you're up next, followed by Ms. Banks on deck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senators. I've been an active member of the Board of Trustees at the Archives for more than a dozen years, and I now serve as chairman. The legislature has shown the will and the wisdom to keep in place for 123 years the same governing structure for this agency. A board of trustees, which includes the governor as a voting member, along with members chosen primarily from the state's congressional districts. Every trustee must be approved by the Senate Confirmations Committee. The starting point, then, for this committee's deliberations on a bill which replaces the board with political appointees who serve at will is why? What is the compelling problem or need warranting such a radical change? Nothing in the bill documents or even suggests any fraud, mismanagement, or improprieties which implicate agency staff or trustees. There can be no credible complaint that the agency is not fulfilling each of the objects and purposes outlined in the originating statute. Senate Bill 77 does threaten to disrupt the continued stability of the archive's operational mission, with adverse and consequential effects on the trust and goodwill of those we serve and the donors we must solicit to enrich and expand our museums. If the legislature sincerely wants more direct participation in our governance, the agency welcomes you. And we have submitted a draft bill which will expand our board membership to include the Speaker of the House and the Speaker pro tem or the President pro tem of the Senate as voting members. Respectfully, we ask you to consider this alternative, and we urge you to summon the will and the wisdom to reject SB 77.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd. Ms. Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Carrie Banks. I'm going to echo some of what was said because I really want y'all to consider the alternative for all the reasons listed before me. But I'm an advocate of and an ambassador for the archives through the Alabama Friends of the Archives. I've been there for nearly 6 years. But my relationship to archives goes back 25 plus years because I worked with the Alabama League of Municipalities for 25 years, retiring there in 2022. One of the functions that you may not be aware of is that the Alabama Archives works with local governments on information management, records destruction, and preserving permanent community records. There's a detailed section on the website for this purpose. So archives serves many purposes beyond what's just before you. The board structure for archives has worked effectively for 123 years. It's dynamic, diverse, and requires participation from all 7 congressional districts to ensure statewide representation. And as you know, all members are vetted and then confirmed by the Alabama Senate. The governor is an ex officio member. ADAH is a nationally recognized success story for our state, a nationally recognized success story. We don't have a whole lot of those in the state of Alabama. To completely dissolve the board structure that has been in place for more than a century is to upend one of our most dynamic and enduring agencies. Why would you do that? The Alabama Department of Archives and History is an Alabama treasure, and I respectfully request that you vote against reporting SB 77 out of this committee and consider the alternative that we've been working diligently on to address the concerns of the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Banks. Ms. Battle?
Thank you, members of the committee. My name is Wanda Howard Battle, founder of Legendary Tours. I live in Senator Kirk Hatcher's district. I'm a longtime supporter of the Department of Archives and History and a current member of the Friends of the Archives Board. I speak to you today in opposition to Senate Bill 77. Today, people from around the world come to Montgomery to visit our museums and cultural sites. These visitors want to feel a connection to the past, and they want to draw lessons from it. One of the best historical resources this state has is the Alabama Archives. The Archives is one of the most respected and respectful institutions of its kind in the country. If you walk through the halls and exhibits at the archives today, you won't find a political agenda. What you will find are representations of all parts of Alabama's history, the good, the bad, and everything in between. You will see my story, a woman born during the Montgomery bus boycott and whose life has been impacted by it. Boards set the course of an agency. I ask you to look at the people who currently serve on the Archives Board, including civil rights attorney Fred D. Gray. These trustees are public servants from all walks of life and from all parts of this great state. I trust them to continue to do the right thing for the archives and for the people of Alabama. That's what they have been doing for years. Don't change it now.
Thank you, Ms. Battle. Okay, given the time, we are going to conclude the public hearing at this point, and I thank the public from commenting. Senator Coleman Madison.
Mr. Chairman, I've submitted the sub, and basically it's already been talked about because it expands the board to allow for appointments by leadership here in the legislature. The governor still sits on it. I couldn't have made the case any better. You know, this is a quiet, unassuming board, gets all the credit. Alabama, we get all the credit because of the work that they do. I quite frankly didn't even know who the people were that served on the board. But for 123 years, tells you a whole lot. And if someone said, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, basically. And so they are nonpartisan. It's about reflecting the history of all people and who we are. It is about history. And I think if we go down this slippery slope, one of these days we're going to find out that maybe our own history or our ancestors' history is also being taken away or not recorded accurately because we have made it a political football.
So I have a motion by Senator Coleman Madison, I believe,
yes,
to adopt the sub, and a second by Senator Coleman.
And Hatcher.
I would like to say real quick on the sub, as I've read it, and I've just gotten it here, but it appears to still leave the vast majority of the Alabama Department of Archives and History Board as self-appointing members, which kind of defeats the purpose of the bill. So committee, I will be voting against the sub and would urge y'all to do the same. And at this point, clerk, if you would call the roll on
Mr.
adoption
Chairman,
of the
are you
sub.
not taking any questions? You not taking any questions of your bill?
We're working on the sub right now. So if you'll let me, we'll move through this. Clerk?
Senator Albritton.
Lord have mercy.
Voting on the sub.
Senator Carnley. Senator Coleman.
On the sub, yes.
Senator Gudger. Senator Hatcher. Senator Hovey. Senator Kelly. Senator Coleman Madison. Senator Chambliss. Senator Elliott.
No. Okay, the sub is not adopted, and now we are on the bill itself as amended. I will move for a favorable report on the bill. Well, if we can, with this, okay, guys, this is how this is going to work, okay? We're gonna make the motion, then we're gonna get a second. Then
I'm going to leave.
Then we'll
I mean,
discuss.
You don't have to do us like that.
I'm just saying this is
You're
how
going to
we're
run
gonna-
over us anyway.
I'm not running over you.
Still
I'm
talk
just
to us like
trying-
we are an equal member of this body.
Just trying to walk you through the process so that we can get through this in an organized manner.
This right here doesn't make sense.
So the motion is to give the bill a favorable report as amended.
Alrighty.
Motion and a second. Second was Senator Gudger.
Thank you.
And now we'll have discussion on the legislation. Is there any discussion? Yes, sir.
So to clarify, since we've had an amendment now, with this as it's currently written, the ones that are on the board could be reappointed, is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Senator Chambliss.
Mr. Chairman, there's obviously been some good points discussed here today, and I'm gonna vote to move the bill along, but we want to try to work and see if there's something that we can do to come to a little bit better place before we go to the floor.
Very good. Okay, thank you very much. Senator Albritton.
I'm going to support the bill to get it out of the committee. We do need to talk about what we're creating here in the new system will be an ever-changing, because we are Republican now, most of this, but that's going to change very quickly at some point. And then we're going to be faced with a seesawing back and forth. We've got to make sure that we protect the institutions as much as possible. I'd like to talk to you more about this before we get to the floor.
Sure, door's open. Okay. Got a motion and a second. We're going to call it Senator Hatcher.
Just very quickly, I want to thank the people, those persons who have come forth to speak very clearly about this. And I do appreciate the question that I think Judge Boyd mentioned, was the question why. And I hope that whenever that conversation takes place, that Senator Albritton is suggesting that we will actually have a chance to address that, because I am also a person who genuinely believes that if it's not broke, don't fix it, because it doesn't require it. Or you can do like my grandma would say, fix it so no one else can fix it. So I hope that we will be able to revisit that at some point.
And thank you for
Thank
your
you,
service.
Senator.
Can we have a roll call, please?
You may. Okay. The motion is on favorable report for the bill as amended. Clerk, call the roll.
Senator Albritton. Senator Carnley. Senator Coleman.
No.
Senator Gudger. Senator Hatcher. Senator Hovey. Senator Kelly. Senator Coleman Madison.
No.
Senator Chambliss. Senator Elliott.
Aye.
7 to 3.
The bill receives a favorable report. Thank you, committee, and thank you, members of the public.